Welcome to Heart and Mind, the four-gospel journey for radical transformation. Today we embark on a four-part series which considers the gospel texts as a journey of transformation. These videos are intended to be discussion starters. They will be relatively short, no more than about 10 minutes or so, and they intend to get you thinking and praying about the journey of transformation. Today we will be climbing the great mountain of Matthew and asking, how do we face change? Next week, we'll cross Mark's stormy sea as we ask, how do we move through suffering? Later on, we'll rest in John's glorious garden and ask, how do we receive joy? And then finally, we'll walk Luke's road of riches and ask, how do we mature in service? This study is a new framework for understanding the Gospels as a whole, but just as important as a way of understanding and framing our own spiritual transformation in Jesus. Each week can be understood on its own, but will mean the most if you can view these one at a time sequentially. So plan on sticking with this study for 4 weeks. If you have to miss a week at some point down the road, the study will be available for you to watch online, and we'll give you that information at the end of the study. And so with that, I invite you into today's study, which is climbing the great mountain of Matthew, asking, how do we face change? The setting is ancient Antioch, just a few years after Rome and the Emperor Vespasian destroyed the holy city. They destroyed not just the city, but the holy temple and ended the priesthood altogether. They wanted to stop the Jewish faith. Antioch became the city where most of the Jews fled to at that time. And of course, in that Jewish population included the earliest followers of Christ. The common position with those early followers of Christ were, this is the end. Our life has been destroyed. Our way of life has been destroyed. Our religious way of life has been destroyed. We need to prepare for a time of great trial and tribulation. It was a time of such great and dramatic and terrifying change that was all they could say. They could say, it's over. This is the end. Where do we go from here? What have we done to bring ourselves to this point? Are some of the questions that they had been asking. And this is where the four-gospel journey begins, and where the followers of Christ in Antioch were challenged to hear the Gospel of Matthew as a summons to change and to grow through that uncertainty and that time of trial, and to face the challenge with hope rather than dread. The text of Matthew says that whenever your personal life or corporate life experiences great darkness, know it's not the end. Even in the darkest of times, like a storm approaching on the horizon, Christ is with us. In Judaism, and really until the modern era of Christianity, the new day begins at sundown. The onset of darkness is the new day. We enter the darkness with the hope of a new day coming. So new life begins in a place of darkness. Plants and vegetation begin in the darkness of the earth. Our lives begin in the darkness of the womb. Enter the Gospel of Matthew. The broad testimony of the life of Christ shows moments and shows us how we can receive and face great change and trial. In Matthew 1, we read of the announcement of Christ's birth to Joseph. We also read of his willingness to trust in God at the onset of major change in his life. In Matthew 2, the Magi, upon seeing the Christ star, venture into the unknown in order to find the King. In Matthew 3, Jesus is led into the wilderness to face temptation from the devil. At the time of this gospel's writing, Jesus' followers were in a spiritual wilderness in Antioch. And so they read this gospel and asked, how did Jesus face this challenge? How can we face our time in the wilderness? In Matthew 5, Jesus literally ascends a mountain to give a great sermon, which is an invitation to change for all. Jesus gives us quite the hill to climb, calling us to a radical new way of living. This challenge asks us to deny ourselves and live counterculturally for the sake of the kingdom. How do we face this great change that Christ calls us to? Alexander Shia points to the passion of the Christ as the prime example of how we can receive and face change. You'll read in Matthew 26, as Jesus looks out and says, "My betrayer is at hand." Judas comes to the Christ and kisses him as a sign of his betrayal. And Jesus says, "Friend, do what you have come to do." When we step into Jesus' shoes on this journey, we receive the work of the moment. Just as Jesus received the betrayal and said, "Do what you have come to do," we also receive the work of the suffering or the trial which approaches us. It doesn't mean that we have to condone the suffering. We don't condone what Judas did to Jesus, nor do we have to condone any kind of suffering or trial or tribulation that comes our way. But when suffering and that time of trial is inevitable, we can look into the pain, we can look into the betrayal, and say, "Jesus, help me do what you are asking me to do in my life for continued transformation in this time of trial." And so maybe the trial before us is a betrayal or a challenging or broken relationship. Maybe it's the pain of relocation, the pain of a layoff, the struggle of a financial storm. Maybe it's the impending death of a loved one or a journey of grief that you already find yourself on. It's as though we stand before a great mountain, one with a path that goes up and over the top, and we can't see the path. We really can't see much of it except the start. But we know that on that path there will be work, there will be pain, and there will be weariness. Jesus says, "Put your hand in mine. Let's climb this mountain together." How do we face change? How do we face suffering? Will we receive the invitation to transformation? In a moment, you'll have the chance to dive deeper on this first leg of the journey, of the four gospel journey, with a group or as part of your personal devotion. A study guide with questions and discussion prompts are available on the Bible study section of the First Baptist Church website, and we should be displaying the link for you now. For now, as we close the video, I invite you to hear the words from Psalm 121. Hear them, meditate upon them, pray upon them as we prepare for this journey of transformation. Psalm 121 says, "I raise my eyes toward the mountains. Where will my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." God won't let your foot slip. Your protector won't fall asleep on the job. No, Israel's protector never sleeps or rests. The Lord is your protector. The Lord is your shade right beside you. The sun won't strike you during the day, neither will the moon at night. The Lord will protect you from all evil. God will protect your very life. The Lord will protect you on your journeys, whether going or coming, from now until forever from now. Amen.